What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Mike Dokter. I am the coach of one of the high school girls basketball teams at the house out of Muskegon, Michigan, and I'm excited to be with you again. We are reading Pound the Stone. We're going to read chapters 4, 5, and 6 today with some thoughts. If you're just stumbling upon this for the first time, feel free to look through the rest of the videos, but I would recommend that you go back and watch the playlist entitled The House, Chop Wood, Carry Water, so you have an idea of what these concepts are that this book builds upon. So this is chapters 4, 5, and 6 with some thoughts out of Pound the Stone by Joshua Medcalf. Chapter 4, Pound the Stone. The energy in the hotel conference room was powerful, but Jason had never felt more out of place. He sat surrounded by hundreds of other student sales trainees, none of whom looked anything like him. No athletes, certainly, mostly honor roll types. Thankfully, the lights went down and the program director took the mic. We have a real treat for y'all tonight, and I'm so excited we're able to bring this guy in as our keynote speaker. He's a 5-time world champion, 2-time MVP, 3-time finals MVP, and Rookie of the Year. He's also a 15-time All-Star, and, well, you all know who he is. To me, he's just one of the kindest, hardest working, and most down-to-earth people I've ever known. TD. Jason's jaw dropped as the room applauded, standing at attention. The man taking the stage seemed to fill the entire room with his presence. But there was a quiet strength in every movement. It was the same quiet strength that Jason had idolized growing up, watching this man win championship after championship on TV. But here in this room, with no screen between them, he seemed to be both larger than he realized, but also more human. He nodded humbly to the program director before taking the mic. Thank you all. The applause faded, and TD paced. I want to talk to you all today about mastery, about becoming the best in the world at something. You see, there's a secret that you may not have heard about how to get there. It's something that only the very best in the world know how to do. And it's the little thing that they do that sets them far apart from everyone else. In fact, I believe it's the only thing anyone can do to truly gain mastery at anything. And it's an equal opportunity principle. It can be applied to fulfill your potential in business, sports, and your relationships, as well as your overall life. Do you want to know what it is? Jason leaned forward eager. Now this was something he wanted to hear. Sensing the excitement in the room, TD grinned. Okay, here it is. The one thing that the very best know how to do that so many others don't, the same thing they've all used to get where they are, is this. They know how to pound the stone. But knowing isn't enough. Pounding the stone has to become a lifestyle for them. Jason was puzzled, curious. He'd never heard this phrase before. On stage, the big man went on. This philosophy comes from a poem that I know very well, because it hangs on the wall in my team's locker room. I probably know it better than any other set of words put in the English language. TD paused, eyes closed, reciting it from somewhere deep inside of himself. When nothing seems to help, I go and look at a stone cutter, hammering away at his rock, perhaps 100 times, without as much as a crack showing. Yet, at the 101st blow, it will split in two. And I know it was not that blow that did it, but all that had gone before. He opened his eyes again, scanning the room. Now, I've never met a single person who just wanted to be average. On the other hand, I've met thousands of people who want to be great. But here's the thing I've learned about wanting to be great. Everyone wants to be great until it's time to do what greatness requires. The hard truth is this: greatness requires more grit, determination, character, and persistence than nearly any member of the human race are willing to develop. How many Michael Phelps are there? How many Steve Jobs? How many Oprahs? How many Steph Currys? I would guess that there's a lot of talented people in this room. Unfortunately, talent is overrated. But the ability to pound the stone day in and day out, year after year, until finally the stone splits, that's the rarest, most valuable asset on the planet. And I guarantee that if you can develop it, you will become great in whatever you do. Now, the program you're about to go into gives you an incredible opportunity to put this philosophy to work and to cut your teeth in the street. It's designed to push you to the brink of yourselves and help you develop the kind of character and grit that is almost impossible to develop in other places. But I can promise you that you'll only get out of it what you put into it. So will you pound the stone this summer? Will you lean in every time you experience setbacks and failures? Will you continue to pound the stone no matter how many doors slam in your face, no matter how many no's you hear, no matter how tempting it is to quit? When you face the choice between doing the hard thing or taking the easy way out, will you pound the stone? When you face the choice to tackle a challenge or run from it, will you pound the stone? When you face a choice to treat a person poorly or well enough in a tough situation, will you pound the stone? When you face the choice to keep showing up or quit, will you pound the stone? I certainly hope that in all of these situations you'll choose to pound the stone, but at the end of the day, no one can choose it but you. And for some of you, that's scary. You'll be on your own this summer. No one will tell you what to do, what time to start, or what time to finish. So the temptation will be to not pound the stone for 12 to 14 hours a day because no one is making you. But if you can push past that and pound the stone and give your very best day in and day out, you will be amazed at who you become through this process. Remember, everyone wants to be great until it's time to do what greatness requires. I can tell you from experience that it requires you to faithfully and persistently pound the stone regardless of your temporary feelings. TD put his hands together like a monk and gave a slight bow as the place erupted in a standing ovation of thunderous applause. All right, that was chapter 4, Pound the Stone, what this book is named after. And I'll tell you what, I'm so excited to talk about these concepts with you, and there's so much in that chapter that I could expound upon, but really the idea is consistency and persistency in the little things. Continuously doing what you know is right. Continuously doing what inside you know it takes to be better, to be a better version of yourself. Not to win the game, not to be a champion, although you will become a champion in the midst of doing these things, but really to truly become a better version of yourself. And that's why I read these books for my team and with my team, and why we read them together is because at the end of the day, our goal is not wins versus losses. Those are nice, but those are a byproduct pounding the stone. Those are a byproduct of doing what we know is right and putting in the work and practice day in and day out, over and over and over again, and giving 100% of ourselves. It's a byproduct of that. Pounding the stone is all the little things that ultimately adds up to that stone breaking at the end. And when it does break, it's not that one motion, it's not that one pound, it's not that one sense of impact, it's everything that's gone before it. So as you're going through your practice, as you're going through your days, as you're going through everything else, continue to pound the stone, stay consistent. All right, chapter 5, the smallest house on the block. Jason shrugged his backpack off, wiping sweat from his face. His t-shirt stuck to his back. His wrists felt like fire ants had crawled inside to sting every inch of his skin. It was 100 degrees already, and it wasn't even noon. On Monday, flying high with motivation, fresh off TD's speech, Jason had been stoked. But today, Friday, he was ready to give up. He hated this stupid job. After the week of training he and all the other students had been sent to their different territories where they stayed in a hotel while they were knocking on doors to find someone who was willing to host them for the summer. The sales program even provided a list of pre-approved households that had either hosted student salespeople before or were connected to the program in some other way. But even with that head start, Jason still hadn't found a host. He couldn't believe that it was the honor roll kids. It wasn't the honor roll kids, but him, the big athletic guy with the charming smile who could always talk his way out of trouble. He was the one who was striking out. Yesterday, he got so discouraged he just gave up at lunch and went back to the hotel. But a single thought kept dodging him. If he didn't do this, he had zero chance of playing basketball again. So that morning, he hit the streets again, going down the list of the last few houses. The first threes had been no's, and one woman had even slammed the door in his face. The only house that remained, and Jason wanted nothing to do with it. Only one house remained, and Jason wanted nothing to do with it. It was the smallest house on the block, and instead of a new Tahoe or Tesla in the driveway like the other houses, this one had one of the ugliest cars Jason had ever seen. It was a boxy old Subaru in a weird color that bothered him. What kind of person drives a car like that, he thought to himself. But Jason didn't have a choice. It was this house or the end of his basketball dream. He took a deep breath and knocked. Hello? The door cracked open, revealing a slender 60-year-old woman whose crystal blue eyes shone intensely like spotlights. He got the sense that this lady didn't mess around. Hi, I'm Jason. He tried to smile convincingly as he explained who he was. Once he mentioned the name of the program, the woman's face lit up as she swung the door open. Oh, come in. Do you want some lemonade? My name is Jan, by the way. Inside, the house was nice and neat, everything cleaned and polished and in its place. There was no clutter. Somehow it seemed bigger and nicer on the inside than it looked from the street. Russ, come meet this nice young man from the book sales program, Jan called as she poured Jason ice-cold lemonade in the kitchen. A moment later, her husband entered. He was almost as tall as Jason, with a broad lined face and set of shoulders that looked like he might have been a pro football player in his younger years. He offered his hand and smiled warmly. Nice to meet you. I'm Russ. His grip was like iron, and it made sense. He wore the uniform of a manual laborer, a pair of utility pants and a stained work shirt with a patch that said City Sanitation Services. Jason thought they seemed a bit of an odd couple for this middle-class neighborhood. As they sat at the kitchen table, Jason asked if he might stay with them for the summer. Russ didn't even blink. Of course. Jan chimed in. We only ask that you pull your weight and clean up after yourself. Dinner is at 7 every night. I appreciate punctuality. Jason smiled. Yeah. But Russ's voice dropped an octave stern. Excuse me? In this house, we will be treated with respect, and you will treat us with the same respect. It's yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. Is that clear? Yes, sir, Jason replied, slightly embarrassed. Glad that's settled, Jan replied warmly. Now we can put you in the guest bedroom. Just follow me. As she showed him around, Jason took a breath. Jason breathed a sigh of relief. He was grateful to be here, even if the place wasn't the best-looking house on the block. Even though Russ had corrected him, there was something warm and good about him and Jan. Somehow he knew they cared deeply about him. It wasn't something Jason had felt much in his life. That night, as he lay in the small guest room that would be his bedroom for the rest of the summer, he was excited. Now, finally, he could get down to business. All right, that was chapter 5. The point I want to make out of that, first appearances are not everything. Don't make a final judgment based on what you see initially. There's always a lot more to the story. All right, chapter 6, do it anyway. The next morning, Jason woke up to the smell of fresh coffee. Russ was in the kitchen eating the steaming hot breakfast Jan had just made. As Jason joined him, he looked him in the eye and asked, So, are you ready for your first day? Though through a mouthful of bacon, Jason admitted, Not really. I've never done a job like this before, so I don't really know what I'm doing. And I don't know if my training was enough. Good. Well, what's that supposed to mean? Jason huffed with attitude. Well, one thing I've learned in my journey is that you never truly are ready. The only way you get prepared and ready is by actually experiencing the thing you're afraid of doing, but that you know in your gut you're really supposed to do. The timing will never be right. There's no such thing as perfect timing. Let me ask you a question. What would happen if you turned your what ifs into even ifs? What do you mean? I mean that instead of asking yourself, what if this fails? What if no one purchases it? What if I'm not good enough? You started telling yourself these instead. Even if this fails, even if no one purchases it, even if I'm not good enough yet. Start to see your life as a story, Jason. And remember that every great story has plot twists, trials, and hardships. We love stories where the unlikely hero overcomes adversity and chooses to act in spite of facing seemingly impossible odds. What is the worst thing that can happen if you sell 0 books this summer but approach it with a growth mindset? You still gain invaluable experience. You still learn and grow. What if you approach the summer like Conor McGregor approaches every fight? According to him, I never lose. I either win or I learn. Jason was surprised by how confidently Russ was speaking about something so deep. So he just nodded along, letting him continue. Jason, something corrodes and dies inside of you when you refuse to pursue what sets your soul on fire in order to play it safe. You weren't created to play it safe. The greatest risk of all is playing it safe, and I refuse to believe the purpose of your life is to arrive safely at death. The unlikely hero in your story is you, and if you play it safe, you may not like how your story turns out. The fear will always be there. Do it anyway. The lack of resources is real. Do it anyway. The lack of experience might set you back. Do it anyway. You are the unlikely hero. Do it anyway. I think Macklemore summed it up really well in a song, 10,000 Hours. The greats weren't great because at birth they could paint. The greats were great because they paint a lot. There will always be obstacles, setbacks, and legitimate excuses not to do what you know in your gut you should do. Do it anyway. Jason nodded politely. Thanks, Russ. I appreciate the advice. I guess now I'm going to go out and do it anyway. But as he walked out the door, Jason couldn't help but chuckle. This guy probably picked up trash and swept streets for a living. What in the world was he talking about? Sure said some strange things. Jason wondered if Russ secretly struggled with the delusions of grandeur. All right, that was chapter 6. That's it for this video, but some thoughts on that. Do it anyway. Look, there's going to be times throughout the course of this season where you're going to find that we're going to work on a new drill, we're going to work on a new skill, we're going to be doing something you've never done before, and it's going to be weird, it's going to be scary for you. It's going to be anxious for you. You're going to feel anxious about it. Give it your best shot. Do it anyway. Learning and growing comes through failure. And failure needs to be redefined as feedback. It's not that you fail. It's not that you screw up. It's not that you don't achieve a goal. That may be true, but if in your brain you're thinking, okay, well, I'm a failure, and that's how you label yourself, then you're going to have this negative connotation in your mind about actually trying new things. When you're afraid to fail, you're afraid to try. And if you can reframe failure, if you can reframe it to being something where you can learn and grow and do it anyway, and put yourself out there and really attempt to gain something from the process through the feedback, you're never ever going to be a failure. You're only going to be somebody who gets better. And that's the point of do it anyway. That's the point of that chapter. So I'm excited again to keep reading with you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time. Bye now.